Hello and welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while, but I'm back now properly. I'm going to start making regular videos again. I reckon one every sort of 3 or 4 weeks, and the next one will be a tutorial. But anyway, back to this video. I entered a game jam last weekend. It's the first one I've ever done, and it was the GDevelop Weekend Game Jam 3. And it's a 49-hour game jam, so just over 2 days. And the theme of the game jam was only 2 buttons. So I decided to make a quiz game, and I'm just going to run it for you to show you how it works, and then I'll talk a little bit about making it. So let's preview this. When you run the game, or when you visit the page that the game is on, and by the way, you can play my game if you like. There are links to the itch and the GDeGames pages in the description down below. So you can play my game if you like. And it takes about a minute to complete, so it won't take too much of your time out of your day. If you don't get enough questions right, it might take you a bit longer than that. But anyway, let's begin. Let's press Z. So you get a clue at the top, and you have to choose the correct image. The Z or the X buttons are underneath. I'll just do the first 3 because I don't want to spoil the game for anyone who wants to play. I'll get this one wrong, and I lose a life. And on the next one, I'll let the timer expire. There we go. So you only get 1 life in this game. Very harsh. It's like the Dark Souls of game jam games. No, not really. It's quite easy, actually, I think. I've probably made the questions a bit too easy. There are some tricky ones, there are some sneaky ones, but a lot of them are quite straightforward. It's probably more of a kids game, maybe. I don't know. You have to decide how difficult you think it is. Some people who've played it are older than me, and they got stuck with some of them, so there you go. Anyway, when you lose, the game will tell you what your score was. So obviously that's captured in a variable, and you get to try again if you want, and it just goes back to the beginning. The questions are in the same order each time. They don't randomize, and the buttons, the X and Z and X, are always in the same place. I don't do anything sneaky like swap them round or anything like that. This is just that was just for me. I hide that when the game runs, and it just shows how many correct answers the players got, so that I could make sure my variables were working properly. That's quite a common technique, actually, just to use a text field to show the value of certain variables, so that you can test that your game is working properly, that the values are being passed to the correct places, so that your game works. This timer bar, I'll just talk a little bit about how some of these bits work. This timer bar was dead simple to do. I just did 2 PNGs of the same size, and this one on top, I've got the tween behavior for it, and I just reduce its width, and it takes 2 seconds to reduce to 1 pixel. I think that's correct. It reduces in size to 1 pixel. Oh, I'd have to try and find timer bar. Here we go. Oh, it's been nearly a week since I made this, because the game jam was last weekend, and I'm already kind of forgetting how I designed things and where it was. So yeah, here we go. I tween the width of the timer bar to 1, so 1 pixel wide. It's 450 pixels wide at other times, so it gets reset. Each question, it gets reset, so you get 2 seconds again. So there we go. That's how I do that. So it's a really simple way of doing a little timer. I know there are games, I don't know if it's Life is Strange or some other games, where you get a timer appear to kind of push you to make a decision in dialogue. It might be Mass Effect. But anyway, I've seen that kind of timer bar be used before in dialogue systems to push you to make a decision really quickly about what you want to say to somebody. So you can't think about it for ages and think, oh, I don't want to upset that person. I need to choose the right answer. It forces you to be more intuitive and immediate with your decision making. But anyway, originally I had this take 3 seconds, and it was just too long. It gives everybody far too long. I want to have a little bit of pressure, but not too much, so I changed it to 2 seconds. Anyway, this life thing, dead easy, is just a sprite object with two single frame animations. And I've got the shake behavior on this, but I didn't have time to make it move quite the way I wanted. If I show you, it just sort of tilts rather than shakes. I needed to tweak it more. So if you look up here, oh, I got it right. Let me get one wrong so I can show you this. Here we go. Yeah, it just sort of tilts when it changes, whereas I wanted it to shake, but I just ran out of time and I didn't want to faff about with the settings for that when I was running out of time. So yes, you've got a series of images on the left and a series of images on the right, and each question, each clue, I suppose, it's not really a question, it's a clue, a prompt. This will slide in with a X position tween, and this will slide in as well from the right, that one from the left. And if you look at these are just all the images that slide in from the left are in this sprite object. I named it _tile, but it's not a GDevelop tile. That's just a word I used because that made sense to me at the time, but it's not a GDevelop tile. It's a sprite object with lots of animations, single frame animations. So you've got 20 images in this one that come in from the left, and then this one, all the images that slide in from the right, they're all here as well. And actually, that seems like a good idea to talk about the artwork in the game, so I'm just going to switch over to Illustrator. I made the decision to do all my own artwork for this game, absolutely everything, including all the UI stuff. And there are disadvantages to doing that, and I think advantages as well. So the obvious disadvantage of doing all your own artwork in a game jam, especially such a short one, is how much time it takes to do the illustration. Now, my illustration style, if anyone has seen any of my other videos, you'll know that my illustration style is quite chunky and basic. That's just how I like to do things. That's my thing. So here, for example, this pencil and this toothbrush, they took about 10 minutes each, no big deal. And these are just numbers that I typed out, words that I typed out. These are just made from circles and triangles, so they don't take very long at all. But then you get to stuff like this that maybe takes 20 minutes or more to do. And then right at the end, something like this chap took maybe half an hour. So you have to be careful, really, when you've got such limited time, not to get too obsessed about detail. Decide on a simple style, a handful of colors, and then try and stick to that throughout the process. And if you start spending half an hour or something on one illustration when you've got 50 to do, you have to keep reminding yourself, keep it basic, you're getting too detailed. If you're worrying about, reflections on windows and stuff like that, which I was at one point with my train here, I started doing reflections on the windows and other things, clouds in the sky, and you say, come on, Jason, this is ridiculous. You're spending 40 minutes on one thing and you've got 40 of these to do. So you have to keep reminding yourself not to get too obsessed about detail. Keep it simple. If you want to do your own artwork and you haven't got a team with a dedicated artist, then you really want to keep it simple. But of course, the advantage to doing your own artwork is that your game will look unique. No one else's game is going to look quite like yours, even if they do a quiz, because you've done all your own artwork, so it's not going to look like anyone else's game. And so, and that can be quite satisfying. That's quite nice. And what else was I going to say? So yes, I did all the UI stuff as well. Here you've got the keys. You've got two states for these. You've got up and down. So when a player presses Z, it changes to this animation of the key depressed. And this is my health down here. And I'll just switch over to Photoshop actually and talk about art direction as well. And when I say art direction, I really mean a mock-up. And what I did, the first thing I did at the beginning of the game jam, once I made up my mind about what type of game I wanted to make, is I came into Photoshop, I created a blank image at the correct size that I wanted my game to be. I decided 800, 600, and then I figured out how big my UI was going to be. I started to think about the colors I wanted to use. I started designing the buttons and what the timer bar would look like, where the timer bar was going to go. Because originally I wanted my timer bar to go up here, but I decided that it was too busy up here and I could put it down here instead, and that made more sense in the flow of things. And the advantages of doing a mock-up like this is that you make a lot of decisions about your game before going anywhere near GDevelop. If I dive straight into GDevelop and try and figure all this out in there, I'm inevitably going to make mistakes. But if you plan your game just a little bit in advance, how wide things should be, where they should go, where your UI is going to go, what you need to show in your UI, and all these sorts of decisions, when you go to GDevelop, you've got a hell of a foundation to start from. Then you're not just starting from scratch with no clue what you're going to do. You've already made loads of decisions. And so when I go into GDevelop, I've already got items and I know where they're going to go roughly with their X and Y positions. And when I do a mock-up like this, I will actually cut out shapes like this and turn them into sprite objects in GDevelop. So this rounded rectangle here, this sort of capsule shape, that's just a PNG, and I chopped it out and I took it into the game. The timer bar, just a couple of rectangles that I cut out of my mock-up here. So sometimes the mock-up you'll end up with assets from this that you can just import into your game as PNGs or whatever. So that's an advantage as well. You're not drawing them separately. You're drawing them in the context of a mock-up where you can see everything working together. And you already, if you compare this to my finished game, you can see they really look quite similar. So this was a really great guide for me the whole way through doing this first. Obviously, though, with only 49 hours to play with, you have to be careful again not to get too stuck into this and end up spending 3 hours making a super duper polished mock-up, because it's, so I limited myself to about half an hour. I gave myself about half an hour really to just sort of chuck this together and figure out where everything was going to go, and then I chopped it up, got into GDevelop and got on with things. But I really recommend this stage. Even if it's only a 2-day game jam, doing a mock-up first just to help you make a load of decisions right at the beginning. And you don't need Photoshop. You could just do this with pen and paper even. It doesn't really matter. Or an open source art package. But I really recommend this. I think doing a quick mock-up like this will save you time in the long run. Because you just make a bunch of decisions right at the start thanks to this, rather than making things up as you go along and getting into a muddle further down the line. I think the game jam went fairly smoothly. I was quite lucky, really. It's the first one I've ever done, as I've said before, and it's only 2 days long, but I think it went fairly smoothly. I had a few bugs to fix, things not working quite right, as you always do when you're working on a game. Things might go a bit wrong, and you have to try and figure out what's creating the problem, but nothing too drastic, nothing that took too long. There's nothing worse than when you preview your game and it doesn't work right and you've only got 3 hours left to the deadline. Your heart does sink. It's not a nice feeling, but I got things fixed. The only thing I really struggled with, I think, was uploading my game to itch.io. I couldn't figure out how to do it. I had to ask on the GDevelop forum, Discord, and somebody very helpful on there helped me. Turned out there was a great big upload button that I somehow missed. So, it's very embarrassing. I won't linger on that. But I've never done anything like that before. I've never uploaded a game. I've never published a game. I've never finished a game. And so this little game, Decisions, is my first finished game. Because anyone who's familiar with my channel knows I'm working on a fairly large fairly large game. I'll probably finish it sometime next year, I think, my main project. And so I don't have any finished projects. I've done prototypes. I've done little things for tutorials, but I've never done a finished game. So Decisions is my first ever complete finished game that you can finish, that you can complete. You can win, you can lose, you can complete. So that's been brilliant for my confidence. It's been brilliant to spend a decent amount of time in GDevelop again after a bit of an unplanned break this year. It's just been a very positive experience all round. I was a bit nervous doing the game jam. I was worried I'd run out of time. I was worried I couldn't do it, because I'm not used to creating gaming content like this under pressure. Usually I take my sweet time with things. So it's been terrific, and I would recommend anyone who's tempted to take part in a game jam to do so, even if you're nervous. And I think the key is to remind yourself whenever you're getting stressed out that you're doing this for fun. This is supposed to be a fun thing. This isn't a day job. You're entering a competition. Just treat it like it's fun. And if it's not fun, then something's gone a bit wrong, I think. And I think the only pressure you're probably going to experience is coming from you. So I kept reminding myself, Jason, why are you getting stressed out? This is just for fun. If you don't finish on time and you can't submit a game, does it really matter? It's not the end of the world. You've still had a good time. You've still made something that you're proud of. You've still gained some experience. You've still learned some new things. So it's a bit like exercise, sometimes you don't feel like going to the gym, but if you get your shoes on and go, you always feel great afterwards, don't you? You never regret going. Nobody who goes to the gym is going to come out of the gym afterwards and say, oh man, I wish I hadn't had that wonderful workout. I wish I stayed at home and played video games. That never happens. You never regret exercising. You're always glad you did it, and you'll always feel good afterwards. And it's the same with a game jam. Even if afterwards you didn't finish in time, something went wrong with your upload, blah, 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 you still going to get something out of the experience, something positive. So yeah, get your trainers on and go to the gym. No, that's not what I was saying. Get your trainers on and enter a game jam, because you won't regret doing it. Even if things go wrong, I think you're still going to have a positive experience. So I think that just about... Oh yeah, one more thing I wanted to talk about was how much fun it's been playing other people's games, other people's entries. After you submit your game, you can play other people's games, and you get to rate them as well out of graphics, gameplay, blah blah blah, out of 5 stars, and that. So people have been presumably rating my game. I've been rating theirs. I must have played most of the games that other players have submitted, other developers rather have submitted. Apart from the multiplayer games, I think I've played everything and rated everything as well. It's been really good fun. So I've really enjoyed that, playing other people's stuff, and there's some really good ones on there, really good. There are sort of 2 or 3 that I think are excellent, really very good, and then there's lots of really interesting, cool stuff. Yeah, it's really good fun. That whole sort of rating other people's stuff has been a really good part of the whole thing. So it's the game jam is not just making a game, which obviously is the main bit. It's what happens afterwards. It's playing everybody else's. That is also a really great experience. So anyway, I think I'll wrap up here. There's probably all sorts of stuff I could talk about around this and the process. I could show you my very messy events if you wanted to, but I don't think I will actually. But yeah, my events are a bit long-winded, I think, rather than messy. They're a bit long-winded. And when I make anything in GDevelop, I do it in the easiest, most straightforward way possible first, the way that I know how to. And then I'll go back over my events after the thing is working properly. I go back over my events and I reduce repetition, I optimize, I make things more dynamic. So what might start out as 10 events might end up being 3 events, and it does the same thing. But with the game jam, I don't have time to go over my events and optimize and tidy everything up. So my events I like this. You've got a separate group of events for each question in my quiz, and there's a lot of repetition. It's pretty much this block over and over again, and only a few things are changed each time. Now, if I had more time, I could figure out how to make a lot of this dynamic, or have it just in a certain things in an event of their own that all the other events use, rather than stamping it down each time. So there is a lot of repetition here, and if I had more time, I would tidy all this up a lot, consolidate, optimize, all that. So, but that's how I tend to work. I get things working the way I want them, and then I revisit my events afterwards. So, but anyway, well, thanks very much for watching my video about my first game jam, and I hope if anyone's watching and has been a bit nervous about taking part in a game jam, perhaps they might be a little bit encouraged by this video, because I'm a nervous person. I get anxious about things. I've been tempted to do a game jam before, but I let my nerves get the better of me and I didn't take part. And this time I jumped in, and I'm so glad I did. It's really, really good fun. And remember, if things go a bit wrong and you miss the deadline, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world, and I guarantee you're still gonna get something out of it, even if just a confidence boost, or you learn one new thing about GDevelop that you didn't know before. I'm sure you'll get something out of the experience. Right, so I'll say cheerio for now, and I will be back soon with a tutorial. I think a new yarn tutorial. I'm going to show you how to use buttons to choose your options instead of the whole up down cursor keys thing. So look out for that. I will see you soon.